Hi, this is Duane, and today I'd like to talk about the amazing circle of keys. The circle of keys is also known sometimes as the circle of fifths or the circle of fourths, but when people talk about those, they're talking about the very same thing. The circle of keys is the same thing as the circle of fifths or the circle of fourths, okay? And there's all kinds of exciting things you can learn for that, and I'd like to talk about seven of them today, okay? The first thing I'd like to talk about is the order of the sharps. You can learn the order of the sharps as they occur in, uh, in music. In other words, if there's a key signature and you see one sharp, that sharp is always right there, F, okay? You can count on that. If there's two sharps, the key signature is always F and C sharp, okay? Two sharps, F and C sharp. Three are F, C, and G. If you have four sharps, I bet you know what the fourth one will be. Right. You'd have F, C, G, D. If you have five sharps, of course, it's F, C, G, D, and A. And notice these relationships. They're a fifth apart. C is 5 notes higher than F. If you look at the keyboard, you'll see that. G is 5 notes higher than C. D is 5 notes higher than G. A is 5 notes higher than D. And the next sharp, therefore, would be E, and the next sharp would be B, and the next sharp would be F sharp. So if you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sharps, you would have, I'm sorry, I already named F sharp, didn't I? Okay, if you had 7 sharps, you'd have F, C, G, D, A, E, B. If you have 7 flats, the order of the 7 flats is just opposite from the order of the sharps. In other words, if you have 1 flat, it's always B flat. If you have 2 flats, it's B flat and E flat. 3 flats, B flat, E flat, A flat. 4 flats spell the word bead, B-E-A-D, okay? 5 flats would be G flat. 6 flats would be C flat. It looks like B is printed there, but enharmonically it would be C flat. And 7 flats would be F flat, enharmonic with E, but don't call it E, call it F flat, okay? So that's the first thing you can learn is the order of the sharps. Second thing is the order of the flats. So that third thing you can learn from this circle is the relationship of keys, the related keys. If you're in the key of C, it's most likely, it's most closely related to the key of F because there's only one difference. The key of C has no sharps or flats, and the key of F has 1 flat. So the only difference between the key of C and the key of F is that 1 flat. And we already learned that 1 flat is always B flat, okay? C is also closely related to the key of G. Why? Because there's only one difference, the sharp in the key of G, which is F sharp, which we already learned, okay? There's 2 differences between the key of C and the key of D. And you know by now those are the 2 sharps. There's 2 differences between the key of C and the key of B flat, the 2 flats in the key of B flat, all right? And so on. 3 differences between the key of C and the key of B flat. So the most closely related keys to one another are the ones that are closest on this circle. In other words, if you're in the key of E, what are the most closely related keys to you? Right, the key of A, the key of B. The next most likely would be the key of D, or the key of F sharp, okay? So either move left or right on the circle, and those are the most closely related keys. I'm kind of going fast here because I want to cover all 7 here in a limited time. So let's move on to the next thing that the circle of keys relate, and that's the primary chords. If you're in the key of C, the primary chords, or the most used chords in the key of C, are C, G, and F. In other words, the key itself, the keynote itself, plus the ones on the right and on the left, okay? Those are the most used chords. So if you're in the key of B flat, what are the most used chords? The most used chords in the key of B flat are F and E flat, to the left or right, okay? If you're in the key of A flat, what are the most used chords? Right, A flat, E flat, and D flat. If you're in the key of D, what do you think the most used chords are? Right, the key A chord and the G chord, the most used chords, okay? They don't have to happen, but they do. If you dumped all the songs that have ever been written in a computer, those would come out. Those 3 would come out. They're called the primary chords. They're primary because they're indigenous to that key. And I won't get into explaining why, but they are. Okay. Uh, the next thing you can learn from the circle of keys are secondary chords. We learned about primary chords right there. Okay. That the primary chords are to the left and right. Well, the secondary chords after the primary chords are the next three, basically three, could be four, to the left of whatever key you're in. In other words, the primary chords in the key of C are C, F, and G, but the secondary chords are D, A, and E. And that's the most likely, the order in which they'll happen too. In other words, if you're in the key of C, after the G chord and the F chord, the next most likely chord is the D chord. The next most likely chord after that in the key of C is A chord. The next most likely chord after that is the E chord. The next most likely chord is the B chord. And the least likely chord is F sharp, or G flat, of course. Okay? So you can always move to the left to find out the secondary chords. The sixth thing you can learn from the circle of keys are chord progressions, the way chords want to move. And chords generally want to move up a fourth. Quite often they don't always, of course, but you can count most of the time that they'll move up a fourth. Quite often, probably 60%, 70% of the time they'll move up a fourth. In other words, C likes to move to F. F likes to move to B flat. B flat likes to move to E flat, and so on. Okay? So they, particularly if you have a seventh, if you put a seventh on C, that chord, C seventh, will almost always move to F. If you have an A seventh, it will almost always move to D. If you have a D seventh, it'll most always move to G, and so on. Okay? So chords like to move up a fourth. They don't always. You got to remember the primary chords, but chords like to move up a fourth. And so you can learn just the very basic of chord progressions from that. And again, there's way more that we can say about that, but I won't say any more right now. And then thirdly, or seventh, the seventh thing you can learn from the major circle of keys about chord substitutions. In other words, if I have the C chord and I want to make a chord substitution for it, then I have to ask myself, into what other chord will this melody note fit? So let's say I'm playing the C chord, but the melody note is G. So I have to ask myself, what other chord is G in? Okay? And I know from experience, and you could learn this from experience too, that G is in the E flat chord, and so I can try the E flat chord as a substitute for C. What other chord is G in? Well, it could be the third of something, it could be the fifth of something, it could be the seventh of something, but you ask yourself, into what other chord will this note fit? Okay? Well, I'm out of time, so thanks for being with me, and I hope you've learned something from this amazing circle of fifths. We'll do this again, and I'll take it in more depth next time around. So thanks for being with me, and bye-bye for now.